Today we'll be replicating these orange exoskeleton scales that we found out on our last spacewalk. If that sentence sounds insane to you, you should go watch the last video I did. It will all make sense. And just so everyone knows, we followed all safety protocols after we got the samples aboard the ship.
Scanning sample now. Sample decontaminated. Preparing for replication.
See, I told ya. Okay, let's get started. This is a bubble technique nail, but it is a much simpler one. Yay! So, the first thing we want to do is make our bubbles, and I will just say this is how I like to do it because I feel like it helped me get the types of bubbles I wanted. I could set it aside, and once they were set aside and had drained a little, the dryness of the bubbles helped it stick to the nail a little better. If you have a technique that works great for you, just do that. I just came up with this because I was frustrated with bubble nails, and this made it work better for me. Here is my recipe for what I use. It's a teaspoon or two of liquid dish soap, the same of vegetable glycerin, and 1 cup or less of water. The vegetable glycerin is in there because it makes it easier to get bigger bubbles. The bubbles stand up longer. You can set them aside and let the water drain, and essentially they become drier bubbles, and the drier bubbles stick to the nail better. I like to use a fan brush to mix it because it's almost like a whisk, and the fan brush really helps scooping up the bubbles as well when we apply them. We set those aside. We are not going to refluff them, and now we are straight onto our base coat. I am using the Kokoist Maxi Black. I like using a potted gel for this because they're a little thicker, and they can tend to have slightly cleaner results when you do a bubble technique with them than a thinner polish. A thin one will still work, you just might have more cleanup afterwards. I will say the one thing I hate about using potted gels is I hate having to use a separate brush. I love bottled polish because it's just so quick and easy to work with. Anyway, really quickly, I'm going to throw this up on the screen. I just want to show you the various Kokoist blacks, and then the bottled one in the back is Born Pretty's. I think they're HEMA-free black. Just so you can see the differences, the Black Martini is more of a translucent grayish black. The Nero Black Glass is also a very transparent but richer purpley black. And then on the right is what we're using, the Maxi Black. Okay, we are not curing the black we just put on the nail. We are now getting out our bubbles. We haven't refluffed them, and we're going to use our fan brush to scoop them up, and we are going to carefully smush it onto the wet polish. You are going to pull off the exoskeleton feel a lot more, especially in the center, if you can get some larger bubbles to sit on this nail. If you just have a lot of tiny bubbles, it's really not going to have that exoskeleton-y kind of feel. And that is because the areas of larger bubbles give more of a feeling of plated armor, like a larger area. So it feels like surfaces coming together instead of just a pattern on the nail. Because this polish is a little thicker, I kind of like to let it sit there for a minute. Then I stick it in the lamp and cure for at least 60 seconds. You can do a little more since it's black if you want. And that's what we should have. We still have a little bit of cleanup to do on this guy. As you can see the profile, you can kind of see the little hairs sticking up off of the surface. And so we just want to clean those up so it's clean looking, but we don't want to get rid of any of that lift or height we have on the cell matrix. Normally I would use like a 240 grit file, but the hairs on this were just so delicate I could get away with using a buffing sponge. Usually it would start to tear into a buffing sponge. But anyway, so after you get this cleaned up, you just clean it off really well with rubbing alcohol so that we're getting rid of all the dust and stuff on there. And you kind of are going to have to pat it because we have all of that texture. Things can get caught on. And then we're just going to start doing our cat eye application. I will be using the Gaoy Silvery Moonlight because this is a very fine particled silver cat eye and a very clear base, so you don't get any of that graying out. It's very important you use as fine of a cat eye as you have on this. If the particles are getting sparklier, it kind of ruins the effect. It breaks up the look of the nail. And even though this is the only polish we're going to use on the nail, I'm not going to do it in one coat because I want as much particle activation as I can get. I want the nail to mostly be silver. So I'm going to do this in just sort of large chunks that I know I can still control the magnetic effect. So I'm kind of just going up one side. And again, I am not just flooding the cells with this polish. That's why I'm going in and kind of stabbing it into the cells. I need enough polish to get a good silver reaction, but I still need those cell walls to be very much higher than the silver we've just put in. Now I will just flash cure it to keep the silver magnetic particles from moving around, and I'll move on to the next section, and I'll just do that until the nail is done. And I believe I just did this nail, and it was 2, 3 at the most. I may have done a little bit more on the edge at the end to get a little more silver. Now we do the full cure in the lamp. This is what I have. And you can see how, because I split the nail, I also kind of have this cool 2-sided effect going with the silver cat eye. Okay, moving on. We now need to take a fine grit file, and we are just going to lightly file the surface because we want to re-expose some of that black line work of the cell matrix. But this is where we need to be careful because I still want to have that cratery feeling, especially in these large bubble areas. I am not trying to get this nail smooth at all because we're going to be putting a chrome top coat on it so that we can chrome it still. So there's still going to be another layer of polish on here. So I want that ripply, cratery surface to still be there. And then I like to clean it with alcohol while I'm doing this because it makes the nail glossy temporarily, and I can actually see what my black lines are actually looking like and how much is exposed. This is what I have at the end. And now we are ready to do our chrome top coat. I am going to be using Nail Thought's new product, the Chrome It top coat, which is made especially for chrome applications. This is a Kokoist product. I am really loving this. It's working great and really consistent. You just cure it for 30 seconds and I've had no problems. I am also going to do a very thin coat of this as well because, again, I want to keep my cratery, ripply texture, whatever I have left on that nail. That's what mine looks like. And now we are going on to our chrome, which is my favorite orange liquid chrome, the Kokoist Liquid Mirror, the 08 color, just orange. Liquid chromes can be finicky. The orange and the peacock colors from Kokoist work the best, I think. And I have a certain way I like to apply them. So we are going to use that dense square, the ombre sponge, to apply it. We're not going to use the brush in the bottle because it will put too much on the nail. It just wastes the product. Shake the bottle up really well and then put a couple dabs on the sponge and then just rub it on the nail. And we are not worried about getting a perfect application with the sponge. We just want to get good coverage. And if you need to, you can go back and do a couple more dabs. It's not going to make any difference or wreck what is on the nail. Liquid chromes have a very fast drying, weak kind of adhesive film forming ingredient. So once we have that on the nail, we are now going to go back in. I like to use a less dense sponge. I feel like if you go in with another dense sponge, it can start taking the product off. So that's why I switched to an eyeshadow sponge. I put just a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it, and I'm going to use that to buff that chrome into the nail lightly and kind of smear it around better and get that even coverage. This also, at the same time, is removing any extra chrome. You will know you have extra chrome because it starts looking chalky. So if you don't do this, you can end up with a weird chalkiness to it, or maybe more of like a white haze, but you can see a little weirdness happening. After you do that with the little makeup sponge, I then go in and I buff it out pretty hard with my gloved finger. And that is what really gets this chrome to shine. And this is what I have. You can see how shiny that already is on the nail. And now we're just on the final steps. If you would like, you can do a Kokoist Mega Stick base, a base coat on it before you do a top coat. That supposedly can help the chrome from chipping as quickly. I'm not going to do it for demonstration purposes, but just so you know, once you do the base coat, then you just go with the top coat, and our nail is done. Here's the nail we just did, and then we are going to show the original as well, and you can see how the variety of the bubble matrix and those larger cells really sell this more as a sort of, I don't know, this is always just remind me of some sort of weird exoskeleton-y scale thing. And then I also did one in a totally different shape just so you can kind of get an idea of what that might do as well. I think the stiletto ones are the coolest. I personally can't really wear them on my nails because I'll stab my eyes out, but I still love the look of them.
Please place specimens in the designated display area. Your training is complete.